It's good, YouTube. Cardfight King here. Aqua Life baby. You already know how it is. So today, guys, I wanted to bring you guys my Silver Thorn deck profile. If you watched the live stream, I showed you that I did, acquire a Silver Thorn deck. I've always enjoyed the circus mechanic. I love going to like the Barnum and Bailey circuses and things like that. So the clown aesthetic, all those stuff, is something that I personally enjoy. And I did like Pale Moon as a clan for, I've always had a soft spot for Pale Moon as a clan. I finally picked up the Lukier deck. I haven't played with Lukier since Lukier Reverse. Never had the opportunity to play with Venus because I went away for college. But getting into, picking up this deck, got it from a buddy of mine who's getting out of got out of Pale Moon, and I'm really interested in picking up the Venus and Harry, when we hit the beginning of October. And so I've been doing a lot of research, not playtesting. I actually played this deck in a tournament before I changed up my build. And I absolutely did terrible. I wet the bed during the tournament. So, but I learned a lot of things for it, and I've been working on what I need to do with this deck as far as using certain cards like Dorianne and whatnot, because the way this deck plays and how the fact that we're in a force 2 heavy meta, at least around my shop where we have a lot of Gear Chronicle on Ultimile players. This deck can definitely be counterblast denied, and this deck is all around using your burst, having a burst play, and you're really going to be able to use it maybe, I would say about twice per game, but sometimes three if you hit a heal trigger or your Knife Dancer comes in handy. So I just wanted to get into this deck profile, let you guys know what I'm playing, what I got going for it now, and let me know what you guys think. So I'm obviously starting off with starter as Inella, not too important here. Starting out with the threes this time, 4 Lukier and 1 Dorianne. Now, when it comes to Dorianne, and you guys should know the skills, Lukier could pop out your whole soul for a counterblast 2 and gives every front row rear guard 3k, and she gets 10k herself if you've called out 2 cards. Lukier herself is the best beater in this deck. She's a 22k beater on her own. With the +3 ability, she's a 25k beater. So best beater all by herself. The other thing is that with Dorianne, now Dorianne obviously got hit to 1 because of how strong she was, where the game was at the time. Being able to draw a card for every 2 cards you put into the soul, and then add a grade 3 from your soul to your hand, gave this deck a much needed, defense mechanic, and cleared the board from any potential field control, whatnot. And then the next turn you can burst and pop everything out with Lukier. The one thing I've come to learn about Dorianne is that with Dorianne, the way, again, with being in a Force 2 meta and the ability for opponents to counterblast, deny you and whatnot, you really have to know when to use her and where the game situation is, especially since you only have 1 copy. Like early game when your damage is low, she's fantastic, and riding her, she's even more fantastic. But if it's a situation where you're playing against Force 2, you're locked at 4 damage, you use Dorianne's ability, then you don't have any field, well then your opponent's going to sit there, every attack is going to be thrown at you that's going to be lethal, and you're going to want to block everything, but then you're not going to have a board to push them back. So a lot of the times you want to just sit there with a board. You'd rather just sit there with a board so that you can pressure into next turn rather than have no board. And that's what happened to me. I kept using her skill because I'm used to thinking about Ravon and survivability, and then I'm just like, okay, well, I'm playing against Force 2. Not much I can do here. Why did I not do this? And again, that's part of the reason why I did wet the bed, because I personally was not playing correctly situationally. But other than that, she's still an amazing card, and you need to run her. And then going into the grade 2 lineups, we have 4 Lillian. She's like the best grade 2 in the deck. 4 Rising Dragon, 4 Shada, and 2 Dancing Knife Dancer. So Lillian, you don't use her ability often because, again, this deck is very counterblast heavy, and you kind of have to pick and choose. But, between Lillian and Breathing Dragon, you really choose to combo this with the Dancing Knife Dancer at the end of your turn. Lillian, you use her she's your best ride target for turn 2, because you ride her turn 2, you get to put a Lukier into the soul or put a Dorianne into the soul if you don't have her in your hand, just so you can have that play set up for your first turn. But if you like to open up with like Rami's and you can get your stuff into the soul, then you don't really need to use her ability. So it's kind of using her search ability is kind of situational as to what you're looking for, what to put in your soul, and generally what you need. I'm finding that I use her ability less and less, and she's like she's actually the most consistent beater in the deck. 4 different Silver Thorns in soul, she gets 10k. So she's a 19k beater on her own, 24 on an Excel 2 marker. But and we'll talk about the Excel markers later, because this deck, I feel like when it comes to Pale Moon in general, even when Harry comes out, you can go with Excel 1 is extremely viable with what this deck, with what Pale Moon wants to do essentially. Rising Dragon gets 10k when you call 2 or more cards, and then he's just a 9k card that doesn't do much of anything. So he's a good card, but only on the turn that you burst. Shada pretty much, if you have 4 different Silver Thorns in your card name, after you put her into the soul, you give your Vanguard 15k. So she's just extra shielding, and because it's the only other Silver Thorn that came out for grade 2s that we can run. And then Dancing Knife Dancer, he's a decent card. I do like him, and I'm thinking about playing him in the Venus build, because when you are out of counterblast and you just have him on the board like behind your Vanguard or as an attacker, end of the turn, no counterblast, toss him in the soul, CC1, which opens up the ability to use cards like after you use a Selvia to put out cards, or if, talking about now, like use Breathing Dragon or Lillian, put him into the soul to countercharge. So that's pretty much where you look at using him. So he's just, obviously a solid card for a deck that is starved for, starved for having counterblast available to do much of anything. And then for the grade 1s, now the grade 1s are a little different. Here, actually, it's pretty much the same. 4 copies of Irina, easily the best, your best ride target in the deck. 4 copies of Breathing Dragon. I'm not a big fan of this card, to be honest. I really run him just because of his name. 4 copies of Rami. I think Rami is probably, could be the best, like the best grade 1 deck. She's really your cycle engine. She's like your true cycle engine for what this deck wants to do. And then 2 copies of Brassy Bunny. Now, with Irina, she's your best ride target, because what you want to do is, because when you ride on top of her, you get to check top 3 soul charge as many Silver Thorns as possible, and then bottom deck the rest. And if you soul charge 2 or more, then you get to draw a card. So she just starts off your engine, gets cards to your hand, what you want to see. Breathing Dragon's okay. Like I said, he gives you an extra battle. So if you have 4 different Silver Thorns in your card name and your soul, when you boost a Silver Thorn rearguard, you get to put it into the soul and then call out another Silver Thorn rearguard for a counterblast. Again, a lot of the times you're not going to use his skill, but if anything, you're using his skill once per game. Twice if you have Dancing Knife Dancer, and it's like late game plays that you're making with him, and then you have Dancer to go into soul. But a lot of times you're not using his skill or Lillian's skill, because of how expensive this deck is as far as counterblasting goes, and which is why we have Rami. Now Rami's this is literally our filter engine. You rest her, pop her in soul, she searches the top 3, add as many Silver Thorns as possible, bottom deck the rest. It's that simple, and you just continually use her to keep filtering your deck and to keep stacking triggers and other things, non-triggers, at the bottom of your deck. You're literally just keep putting in your soul, because you're just deck thinning. And then late game, you're gonna start hitting your triggers when everything starts to get a little bit more dicey. And then you have Brassy Bunny. Brassy Bunny is just a card because we don't have the other Silver Thorn grade 1s. When you place him, he's just, again, more filter, discard, draw, and if you have a grade 3, soul charge 2. So, you want to see Irina, always, when you write grade 1. Outside of that, I guess Brassy Bunny, but not really. I'm not going to say he's great. He's not that great, and can't wait till he comes out the deck. And then for triggers is pretty simple right here. 4 heals, 4 draw PGs. Probably still going to continue that into the set. I'm playing 4 Silverthorn fronts, 2 Sky High Walkers, and 2 Silverthorn Barking Dragon. So I'm running the 6 front 2 crit build mostly because Barking Dragon is a Silverthorn, so I can keep it to his name. My heal trigger disappeared here somewhere, but it's there. There he is. But really, like, for this trigger lineup, I'm still working on it because I want to probably run, I really kind of want to run 8 front triggers just because of how this deck plays. Like, your turn 1, your turn 2 swing, you're not really putting rear guards on the board. So that does effectively make your front triggers kind of dead, so to speak, right? And in those situations when you're not calling out a board, is when you want to see your crits. I saw Card Otaku's deck profile of this with Venus at least, and he was running an 8 crit. He was running an 8 crit build, and I guess because Venus consistently gives your front row 5k, so I guess I guess what he's discovered that he's fine with that power, and he'd rather go with crits just because they're a lot more threatening, and it forces your opponent to respect your Vanguard column a lot more. I was running this mostly for the name, and just some advice I got from some other people who've been playing this deck. I haven't really seen profiles of Silverthorns post-nerf. A lot of people have pretty much dropped the deck, but I guess are picking it back up now just due to Venus coming out soon. And I'm really considering changing these two to my other 2 copies of Sky High Walker, just so I can have an 8 front build. But so far, I think the Silverthorn Crit is solid, and it's another card that you can toss in the Soul with Rami if you just need a name. And it's like, okay, I'll forego a crit trigger, or I'll forego a front trigger just so I can get a name, so I can have beefier push columns. But that's my trigger lineup for now. Let me know what you guys think about it. Appreciate you guys watching the deck profile on here. I'm going to bring the next deck profile I'm going to bring to you guys is my updated Asha deck. I want to talk a lot more about that as well. And right, and I also want to, I guess, get into like whether we run Excel 2 or Excel 1. So, like, I've mostly been doing Excel 2 with the deck. Obviously when you play Excels, you want to do Excel 2, draw a card, right? But with this deck in particular, like, I feel like Excel 2 is okay, but you can run Excel 1 and be just as, if not more, effective, for the fact that you have cards like you have Dorianne who can draw you cards. You're not really committing too many cards from your from your hand at a time, and you're bursting. It's not like you're committing cards from hand to board like other Excel decks that call cards from mainly call cards from hand to board so that they can maintain a field. I can see why you go Excel 2 because you do need to see more cards. But when you're calling cards from your soul, you're not really you're building a board, but you're not really dropping anything from your hand other than to pay for that cost, which is just 1 card. So when you go Excel 1, that 10k to something versus the 5k can make a huge difference when it comes to your opponent's blocking. Again, like you're in a Gear Chronicle Ultimate Force meta. This Excel 1 turns something from being 27 to 32, and even though 32 is still under, it's not like they can just toss one of their crit triggers out. This forces them to commit a heal trigger or block or no guard it, right? or like a 10k, or like, you know, two 10ks or something like that. It forces them to commit, you know, that extra, you know, that just much extra shield. And even against other Excel decks, Excel 1, you know, is still hitting much more perfect numbers against them, where they're going to have to drop like a heal and a heal and a 5k or something like that. With this marker, I feel like if it's a situation where you have to G assist, and your soul is looking kind of butts, you know, whatever else, then I think the XL2 is good just to get you draw. But again, you're filtering through your deck. You're already, you know, you're filtering through your deck. You're drawing, you know, you can draw cards with Dorianne and whatnot. And again, you're not really committing from your hand. So I think that, you know, with this deck, especially the way that it plays, as far as it being a bursty, you know, a bursty style, then after your burst, you want to have certain cards on board to maintain and have at least effective attacks. Like if you're sitting there with a Lillian on an Excel 1 marker, then you want that Lillian to be, she'll be 19k by herself. The Excel 1 marker makes her a 29k. 29k is a very respectable number. You know, and I know that like with Venus Lukier, you're gonna go Excel 2 because she creates Excel markers at the end of your turn, and you're gonna be drawing, you know, you're gonna be drawing cards. So that's probably why you do Excel 2, and she also gives 5k. So it's basically like you're doing Excel 1, but you're on an Excel 2 marker. But for right now, with where the deck is at for Lukier, I think that the Excel 1 marker is where you need to, is probably the more preferred marker. You know, in more situations than not, and Excel 2 is not a bad marker at all. But again, depending on your matchup, your hand, and where everything else is going, and the fact that you only have 2 turns, you know, really 2 turns of burst, and you need to sustain, this is probably the least effective marker in the overall strategy of the deck. But hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and it's Cardfight King, Aqua Life Baby, and we're out.